Hi everybody, welcome to this new section in phonology concerning phonological rules. Before we actually look at concrete examples of phonological rules, let us just remind ourselves of a distinction within phonology between broad and narrow transcriptions. Very briefly, the word Peter here has got as a phonemic transcription just the phonemes put between slashes here. Peter. This is the phonemic transcription. It shows none of the details of pronunciation that are predictable by phonological rules. So here we are just asked to produce just the phonemes which constitute the word. We have got P, I, T, and schwa here, Peter. Now, the other kind of transcription, which is narrow, is called also phonetic transcription. It's that transcription put between square brackets here, and at the same time we include in it as many phonetic details as possible. Here, those phonetic details take the shape of diacritics. For example, this small h, after here p, it means that this voiceless sound, this voiceless stop, is aspirated. Now, a small circle below the vowel e here shows that it's going to be devoiced. So it's going to be partially voiceless, just because it's found after an aspirated stop here. So in this kind of transcription that we call narrow or phonetic transcription, we try to put as many phonetic details as possible, taking the shape of these diacritics in here. Now also we have got the word queen, which takes as a shape the phonemic one, the phonemic transcription, queen. Now here we have got the phonetic transcription of it, which takes this shape here, queen here. So this k, of course, it's aspirated because it's a voiceless stop at the beginning of the word, and there's a small u here below it, which shows that it is labialized here. There is what you call labialization here, because normally it is found just before this labio-velar sound. When I say it's labio-velar, labio, it means in its production we begin first of all by the two lips in its production here. So this fact is going to affect the influence, or to influence, if you like, the production of k. It's going to make of it a labialized sound. So this is, just to remind you, this is kind of regressive assimilation here. Now, key. Phonemically, we just put k and e, but phonetically, this k is aspirated and it is fronted. Look at this plus below k. It shows that it is fronted. What do you mean by fronted first? Let me remind you first of some features, distinctive features that we introduced before. We said that some sounds are back sounds and some sounds are the opposite of back, front sounds. So k is one of the sounds that are described or characterized as being plus back, because it is velar sound. Now, in this context, in this phonetic environment, it's not going to be a real back sound, it's going to be fronted. Fronted, which means the moment you want to produce k, you are at the same time paving the way for the production of e, which is a front vowel. So k is not going to be a back vowel, consonant, but it's going to be a fronted one. Just to see this clearly, let's pronounce the two words key and car simultaneously. Key, car. we notice that in here our tongue moves forward to the front. Now here in ka, we notice that our tongue, while producing k, our tongue is already at the back part of the mouth, because here it is followed by a back vowel. A is a back vowel, as opposed to here E is a front vowel. So this k is here is fronted, and here it is retracted. Look at this minus below here. And in both cases the vowel is voiceless or devoiced, A and A, because of the aspiration given to k here. So here we have just introduced some concrete examples to show that there is a difference between broad and narrow transcription. In broad transcription, which is the phonemic transcription, we just put the phonemes. But in narrow transcription, which is the phonetic one, we try to show how sounds are accompanied by those phonetic details here. Now, in doing so, we are trying to link the abstract with the concrete. We know that the nature of the phoneme is abstract, as opposed to those realizations or allophones that we produce, which are the concrete realizations, what we actually say, what we utter, what we produce in speech. The allophones, they are the realization, they are concrete. Now those phonemes that we store in our mind are abstract. So here, through this kind of transcription or distinction between the phonetic and the phonemic, we are trying to show the relationship between the abstract and the concrete. So the phonemic level is the abstract, the phonetic level is the concrete here. Let's deal with some other examples through which we are going to show this kind of link between something that we call the underlying form and the surface form. The surface form is what we produce, what appears. The underlying form is what lies behind. For example, in these words, this word is pronounced as melody. Look, here we have got a schwa after L, melody. This is the schwa. Now, we are going to derive a new word from melody by adding a suffix, ik. This fact is going to change the vowel followed with L. It's no longer a schwa, it's going to be o, melodic. Same thing in here. We are not going to say melodious, but we are going to say melodious. This schwa here is going to be changing o. Okay, so this change of the vowel from schwa to o to o here and here, this is dictated by the change, okay, that occurs to the place of the stress. Let me just explain it here. In this word, me is being stressed, melody, but the place of the strong stress in here changes from me to lo, melodic here melodious. So there is a change in the place of the stress here. Now, since we are going to change the place of stress, the second syllable is going to be if you like stressed. We have if you like replace the vowel schwa, which is a weak vowel because it can never be stressed. We have to replace it by a strong vowel, o in here and o in here, just because it's going to receive the strong stress in here. Now it seems that this pattern works for other cases, for other words. There is what we call a certain pattern here. Look, harmony. After M we have got schwa. This schwa becomes o, harmonic. This schwa here becomes o, harmonious here. So it seems that we have got the same pattern in here. So the link between the basic pattern here, okay, and this one milo and this one milo here, these are variants. These are what you call alternations, different ways of pronouncing the same bit in the stem here. So these alternations are linked with stress placement and vowel quality. We have changed the place of stress, and we have also changed the quality of the vowel from schwa to o here. So these variations can be described in terms of rules and are called alternations. These are linked with stress placement and vowel quality here. Now, in these words, it is assumed that there are the same underlying sounds in both the stems and the affixes, but these underlying sounds may change when the stems and affixes are put together to form new words. This is what we have just explained. Therefore, the phonology of a language is the set of rules that describe the changes in the underlying sounds when they occur in speech. Okay, so this is what we explained before. There is a link between the abstract and the concrete. So the underlying sounds are the abstract units called phonemes, and their realizations or allophones are the concrete, if you like, occurrences of the phonemes in some phonetic environments. We talked about cases like here melody, which becomes melodic, which becomes melodious, harmony, which becomes harmonic, which becomes harmonious. So we have got a change of the vowel in the stem here, just because it follows what we said, the change of the stress, and of course we change the vowel quality in here. Now, here we have got a similar pattern, same thing here, but it's no longer the vowel. We are going to talk about the change in the consonant. We have got electric. The last sound of electric is k, but when we add to it et as a suffix to electric, this k is no longer k, it becomes s, electricity. Same thing, iconic, it becomes iconicity here. So and we have got other words which follow the same pattern here. So which means that we have got alternations, electric and electris. It becomes electris when it is joined to et here. It becomes electricity here. So we are trying to link two different levels, the abstract level and the concrete level here. Now this also applies to rules in general, and these are the things we are going to see later on in the other slides. But let us just state that phonology shows the link between the concrete and the abstract, the phonetic and the phonemic. We have just said that the phonetic is the concrete and the phonemic is the abstract. Now, before we look at concrete examples clarifying this issue, let us reiterate crucial theoretical notion in phonology. This is the notion of natural classes. How do we obtain natural classes? It's because we try to classify sounds according to their features, articulatory features. And this is the job of articulatory phonetics. So, articulatory phonetics is concerned with defining and classifying speech sounds according to how they are produced. So, phonetic classes are relevant to the statement of phonological rules. And this is a concrete example that we saw before in a previous lecture, where we talked about German sounds, where final voiced stops become voiceless. So we have already talks about this case. Let us please, just for clarity's sake, just repeat, that example. This rule, changing voiced stops to voiceless stops in final position, remember, final position, this is very crucial here. This is quite natural, since the silence or pause, this is what we mean by final position, there is a period of silence or pause after the word. So since the silence or pause which can occur after the last sound of a word has been uttered is characterizable as voiceless. So we are just trying to join the voiceless sound to the voicelessness of the pause that follows the word. This means that final stops in German become more like the voiceless pauses that sometimes follow them. So it's something which is natural. We put the voiceless sound just before the period of voicelessness. But the opposite does not work. It's not natural. The inverse rule, that is a rule whereby voiceless stops become voiced stops before a pause, is impossible because it's not natural. Because language with capital L is governed by some general principles, showing to us its nature. Now, this rule runs counter to the nature of language. This possibility, which means that voiceless stops become voiced, this possibility is not encountered because it's not natural. This possibility is excluded on psychological grounds, since such a rule would violate the basic design of language, which observes general principles. Of course, these principles limit phonological inventories. They limit also the order of sounds. They limit processes. These are things that we have already seen before here. Okay. Now, the general lesson that we can take from this here is that because the groups of sounds that enter into rules are not random, we can state rules in terms of phonetic properties. Which means, instead of stating rules in terms of just isolated sounds, separate sounds, it's better to talk about those phonological rules in connection to groups of sounds or classes of sounds which share the same phonetic features. Now let's have this example of a group of sounds. V, Q, H, Y. Do these sounds represent one class, one natural class of sounds? Of course, they are not expected to enter into a rule because they don't form a natural class. Now, from now on, when we want to talk about phonological rules, we have to have in mind a natural class, a group of sounds. And this is what we're going to explain through some concrete examples. So, phonological processes, and through phonological processes we will talk about phonological rules. These involve groups of sounds which can be classed together because they are articulated in the same way or share secondary modifications. This is the definition of a natural class here. Now let's have a look at a concrete example, and let's talk about in particular about vowel classification. You know from phonetics that we can group vowels into some classes or groups according to their features. We can talk about, for example, front vowels as opposed to back vowels, about high vowels as opposed to low vowels, and we have got, for example, rounded as opposed to unrounded. Now here we are going to talk about a concrete example of a rule taking into consideration a group of sounds. So this example concerns this language, Kikuyu, which is a Bantu language of Kenya. Now in this language, the vowel system of it includes 5 vowels that are tense vowels. The 5 of them, remember them please. We have tense vowels which are A, I, U, E, O. And we have got in this system two more vowels that are lax vowels. This one, A and O here. So remember please these two sets. 5 tense vowels and 2 lax vowels. If you remember these two sets of vowels, we are going to, explain through them a rule that exists in this language here. And we are going to have, first of all, a look at some words taken from this language. Now, the rule, first of all, says a verb suffix which contains a, when it follows a stem with a tense vowel, will have a instead when it follows a stem containing a lax vowel. This is the rule. The perfect aspect suffix has the form it in the following words. So these are words. And we have got the suffix which indicates the perfect aspect. Neye te te. I have strangled. This word means I have called. This word means I have built. Okay, this one means I have come. This one means I have slandered. Now what do we notice? Where is the suffix? It is in here. What is the vowel that we have got in the suffix? It is a. According to the list of vowels, it is tense. Okay, so in the suffix we have the tense vowel. Why? Because in the stem, in the verb, there is a vowel which is also tense. Remember, this is also a tense vowel. Now, same thing in here. In this suffix, the vowel is tense because here we have got another vowel which is tense. Same thing in here. The vowel here is tense in the stem. Therefore, the vowel in the suffix, which indicates the perfect aspect, is also tense. Same thing in here, and same thing in here. So what do we notice? The fact of having the tense vowel in the suffix is determined by the kind of vowel which is found in the stem, because the vowel in the stem is also tense. So this is what we have in here. But let's look at other examples. These ones in 6 and 7. Look, this stem has, the vowel in the suffix has changed from small a to these symbols here. A. This one. Here. Why? Because the vowel in the stem is this one and this one. And these two vowels are lax vowels. So the vowel in the suffix becomes lax because in the stem we have got a lax vowel here and here. So what do we have in here? We have got what you call an assimilation process. Of course, we have already defined the process of assimilation, and this is a repetition of it. An assimilation process is a sound, okay, when a sound changes to become more like other sounds near it. So this assimilation process here is when a sound changes to become more like other sounds near it. This sound, which was a, small a, it has changed into this one just because it tends to become more like the sound in the stem, because the sound in the stem is what? Is it tense or lax? It is lax here. Therefore, this one should be changed into lax here. Now, the vowel of the suffix assimilates to the lax vowel of the stem. Without a knowledge here, without a knowledge of phonetics, we would be at a loss to understand why this vowel and this vowel have a similar effect on the suffix vowel. We should know first that they represent one class of vowels that we call lax vowels. So the fact of having lax vowels in the stem, this determines the kind of vowel in the suffix here. So this is the rule in here. Phonological rule. Let's please take it, give it a more formal statement. to this rule here, which means this vowel becomes lax in what context? In the context where it is found, this is its place, after lax vowel. This is what we have got in 6 and 7. Now this rule accounts for examples 1 and 6 here. What about 7? Where M, the consonant M, is between the stem vowel and the vowel of the suffix, which means that we have to change our rule a little bit here. Let's have a look at this at 7. In 7 we have got the suffix and we have got the vowel of the stem, but between them we have got this M. We have got a consonant here. So we should take this fact into consideration and to incorporate it in the rule here. So this is the revised rule. A, this one, the tense vowel, becomes lax, in the context where, it follows a consonant and lax vowel before it. Look at the consonant is between brackets, which means it is not compulsory, it is optional. It may be there or it may not. So this is the reading of this rule here. This vowel becomes lax, this one it is tense, it becomes lax in the environment of a preceding lax vowel, which may or may not be followed by a consonant. So this is the statement of, if you like, of the rule here. Now let's have a look at another example of a class of sounds now taken from English. Consider the stop consonants in English. Look, we say the stop consonants. In English we have got how many stop consonants? We have got 6. They form a system. We call them the system of stops. We have got 3 that are voiced and 3 that are voiceless. We have got them here. P, T, K, voiceless. And we have got here B, D, G. These are voiced. They form one system of sounds, the stop sound here. So here we have got them initial, the voiceless ones, and here we have got the voiced ones, and here we have got them after S, and here we have got them final, nap, nap, mat, mad, nak. But we don't have sd or sb, sd, sg. This sequence of sounds is not allowed in English. So this is what we call a constraint on the sequence of sounds in here in English here. So at the initial position, both P and B are essentially voiceless. This is kind of rule in English here. But in pi, after the release of the lip closure, there is a moment of aspiration, which means a period of voicelessness that affects the voicing of the vowel. So P is a voiceless aspirated stop, but B is partially voiced unaspirated stop. Let me just show you this fact through figures. Normally, we know that B is voiced, but in some contexts, especially when it is at the beginning of words and there is nothing before it, this initial B is voiceless. Let me remind you of the figure that we have seen to show the 3 phases in the life of the stop. You remember the opening, the closing phase, the closure, and the opening or the releasing phase here. Now when you want to say, for example, in this word here, let's say buy as a first word and there is nothing before it, this initial B normally takes this shape here. The beginning of it is voiceless. Look at this straight line. We begin voicing only by the end, when we are about to finish its production. So which means that initial B is partially voiceless. Now it seems that it shares this feature with the initial P in pie, because P is also voiceless here. But the only difference between them that P is aspirated. Here the period of voicelessness goes throughout. It goes till phase 3. And in this way, because it is aspirated, it's going to make the vowel after it, this one I, it's going to make it devoiced, voiceless. But in bi, the vowel is going to be voiced, because at the end of B we begin voicing earlier, before we begin the production of the vowel here. So if you like, we can show that there is something in common between initial B and initial P. P is fully voiceless, but B is partially voiceless in here, because we begin voicing only by the end of its production here. Now consider spy. Is the stop consonant more like P or B? Remember that we are trying to relate the abstract with the concrete. Here, if you like, the abstract is we have got the phoneme P. But this phoneme P, is it like P or like B? How is it realized? How is it normally pronounced? In fact, there is no opposition between words beginning with sp and sb, because in English there is no word that begins with sb, but we have got words beginning with sp. Same thing in here. St, we have got possible sequence at the beginning of words, but sd, it's not possible. Sk is also possible, but sg is not possible. So which means that there is no opposition between t and d, between k and g, between p and b in this position in here, in this phonetic environment. Now, the answer to the question that we have already asked, is p like p or b? Normally, the stops that follow s are somewhere between initial p and b. This is because, like the so-called voice stops, they are completely unaspirated. So what makes the difference between the voice stops and the voiceless ones is the fact that voiceless ones are aspirated and the voiced ones are unaspirated. Now on a tape, the P following S sounds like B for listeners. This is taken from experiments done with the listeners. So the auditory point of view confirms the fact that P in spy is like B and not P here. Once again, let's explain this through this figure. P in spy versus P in put. This P here is unaspirated in spy here. We know, as a rule in English, P, when it is found after S, it's not going to be aspirated. So this is the figure here. This P, which is unaspirated, which is found after S in here, it's voiceless at the beginning. But since it's not aspirated, because it is after S, we begin voicing earlier here. The moment you want to release the air, we begin voicing in here. So if you like, the vowel after it is going to be voiced, fully voiced. For example, I in spy. But the P, which is aspirated, look, the period of voicelessness goes throughout the 3 phases in the life of the stop. Phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. When do we begin voicing? When we end, when we finish its production. And this is going to affect the quality of the vowel after it. The vowel after it is going to be, if you like, devoiced or partially voiceless. And this is the case of L here in please. this L following P, because P is going to be aspirated, this L is going to be devoiced. So we have to put a small circle below L to show that it is devoiced. So this is the difference between the unaspirated P we found after S and the P which is going to be aspirated, here, put. That's why we say normally that P is more like B than P, because P normally is fully voiceless, but P in here, it's not fully voiceless. There is some voicing earlier taking part in here. Now, what about P in nap, the final position of the word nap? Now, if you listen to B at the end of nap as the last word of a sentence, it will be partially voiceless. Look, this B here in nap, the final position of the word, this is the shape it takes. We have got voicing, in the first and the second phases here. But by the end of it, we have got voicelessness. Why do we have voicelessness by the end? Because there is nothing after it to be pronounced. We stop voicing here. We say na, and we don't even release the air. So there is a period of voicelessness here. Okay. Now this is for B, which means that when it is final, it is voiceless. It is, if you like, partially voiceless here. So it has got something in common with P, which is already voiceless in here. Now, however, the vowel in nap, this A in nap, it is shorter than that in nap. So look here, the vowel is followed by a voiceless stop, but here it is followed by a voiced one. So this fact is going to affect the quality of the vowel before them. This vowel here, before voiceless sound, is going to be shorter than this one, which is before voice one. So if you like, we can have this general rule in English. Vowels tend to become longer when they are found before voiced sounds. In contrast, this is another rule. P is slightly longer than B, sorry. So it's another rule here. The voiceless one at the end is slightly longer than B at the end. Now, general rule. In English, and of course most languages, after a given vowel, final voiceless consonants are longer than the corresponding voiced consonants. And this is the end of this first part. Later on, I'm going to record for you the second part of this chapter entitled Phonological Rules.